Hey, everybody. Welcome back. It's Inside the Force. Dave Cottingham here with Casey Cooley.
Hello, everybody.
And Cody Geiler.
Hey, how's it going?
Welcome back, gentlemen. How we doing this week?
Pretty good. Good weather. So pretty good.
Yeah, it's like the sun gives you like just life. It's great. I love it.
It's like Superman, man. I'm the same way. When the sun's down, I'm not in a good mood. It's like my kryptonite. Totally. Yes, good weather here in Kentucky. Finally, I think spring is finally upon us. Not sure if the groundhog was right. 6 more weeks. I guess it's been about 6 more weeks of winter. I don't know, but it's starting to break. Rigged. It's all, yeah, it's all rigged. All right. So on this episode, we are diving into the latest news in this past week, but we've got for our topic, we got a big discussion centered around a little bit of the Obi-Wan series regarding to some rumors about that, and ultimately the idea of the Force Ghost. I want to talk to these guys about that because there's a lot of different ideas and viewpoints, I think, that are out there, and we're going to try to center on what is actually canon in a sense. So, but first, just a couple news bits, and really not much too much to talk about. But I don't know if you guys have been up to speed on this. The third book of the Thrawn Ascendancy trilogy has been announced. That is called Lesser Evil. That is going to be coming out November 16th, actually this year. So Greater Good, which is the second book, is not even out yet. It's at the end of this month. Third book coming out at the end of this year. So all three of those, that concludes that trilogy. I haven't been able to dive into that Ascendancy yet. I don't think you guys have either, right?
I haven't, no.
I have not, but I feel like we're going to have reason to dive into it here if you already want to, just to get ready for a potential Thrawn live action. So
that's right.
I'm definitely going to want to learn more about him and the Chiss for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we were me and Hannah were doing we were finishing the first Thrawn trilogy. We were going through those books, and one of the comments, because we mentioned how the third book, I guess, kind of sets up. It doesn't set up the Ascendancy that much, because that trilogy happens before that trilogy. It happens actually during the Clone Wars era, which I didn't really actually realize that. So that's interesting, because the second book, the Thrawn Alliances, was kind of split between timelines. It was happening during the Rebels era, then half of it happened during the Clone Wars era, where Thrawn runs into Anakin and Padme, and there's a storyline there, which is really good. So, yeah, interesting that that's coming out so fast, and I guess they are setting this up for, which I guess I had it kind of down the line, but that's a good point, Cody. I'll bring that up right now. But there's a rumor. It's I think it's something that we all kind of speculated in a sense, but it seems like somebody saw something that said that the Ahsoka series will feature Thrawn and Ezra. I think we kind of figured that, but and again, it's not confirmed news, but Case, I'm assuming that's something we thought of already, right?
Oh yeah, I think whether or not the bigger question was really whether or not that's what all these shows are going to center around. If Thrawn is kind of the Thanos, whatever, of that ties all these shows together, these new shows. But yeah, definitely, I think we were all kind of hoping that it would definitely be in the Ahsoka show. I mean, her little mention of Thrawn and Mandalorian pretty much told everybody what her show is going to be about, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, I read that article, or it's just this little log line that straight up says Thrawn and Ezra, so it's not hiding anything. So if that's true, first of all, that's a pretty crazy leak. And if it's true, then that absolutely all for it.
Yeah. So Cody, that kind of contributes to the fact that we've been hearing these rumors about a casting for Ezra, right? the guy, I think his name is Mino, that played Aladdin in the live action, is kind of the front runner right now. But is it weird, Cody, that because I partially have a hard time wrapping around that, if that's true, which it probably is, that the Ahsoka series will focus on that. It's been then 9-10 years that they've been looking for Ezra. I mean, that's actually to me a relatively long time.
Yeah, I think that's what's interesting, is that it becomes this Rebels sequel, sort of successor show, but now it's in live action and it's taking place in this sort of Mando universe. I think it's interesting. I'm trying to remember exactly what Filoni has said about the Ahsoka episode in Mando season 2, but it was almost like, I feel like at one point he answered a question to say that episode could have taken place before the very end scene of Rebels, where Ahsoka is standing there. Because one key thing, and I always pay attention to this, is like costuming, right? So Ahsoka's still in the gray robes, things like that. She's in the white robes at the end of Rebels. I feel like they might be playing a little bit fast and loose with timelines.
Yeah.
Hopefully that would all be then cleared up when we start this, Ahsoka show, to know exactly, hey, is this going to take place right after we left Ahsoka with like Din and Grogu, or is this going to take place where her and Sabine are heading out? So I think that's the really interesting, and maybe they'll jump between, which could get confusing. I hope they kind of just pick one and stick with it, but it does kind of bring up that whole timeline question.
Wait, so you're saying it's possible that the Mandalorian episode takes place before her and Sabine head out? Yeah. Oh, okay. Now that is, wow, so that is very interesting. Yeah, that is interesting. So that would still, obviously that would still set the timeline that he's been gone for relatively 9 years, almost 10 years, because he disappears before episode 4, and it's been 9 years now since episode 4. So, I mean, I guess it's possible that that Thrawn has somehow made it back, or has now been found, or whatever, because it sounded like in the episode she knew that he was around. She just didn't know where Thrawn was. Did you get that sense, Case? That's kind of how I felt like it.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's still a lot of unanswered questions. Did she just say Thrawn, or did she say Grand Admiral Thrawn?
I can't remember. She said, "Where is Grand Admiral Thrawn?" Yeah,
because that's another. Man, it's the title. I mean, people still call Tarkin Governor Tarkin, but
right.
But yeah, it's again, it's just so much to know about how exactly he still has some kind of foothold, if he is indeed lost, or I don't know. There's so many unknowns, which makes it all more interesting.
Yeah, or the fact that when they jump to hyperspace, I mean, it's possible they never got lost. It's just that maybe we had talked about, I think, Case a while ago, or maybe he's like holding Ezra captive somewhere this whole time, and it's just taking this long to find Thrawn and then go after Ezra.
They just randomly jump out in wild space, and all of a sudden there's Chiss
everywhere,
like, yes!
Right?
Like he's like
exactly.
Or Thor when he sees Hulk.
About if they are in the unknown regions, or where the Chiss, planet, is, and things like that, is, the idea of being able to travel to the unknown regions, up until Rise of Skywalker wasn't easily done. And I think it alludes to, in some of the Thrawn material, that they had Skywalkers, which were these like Force-sensitive Chiss children who could help navigate. Yep. So this idea that a Force-sensitive would have to navigate to get to unknown regions, I think helps make that, if they just straight up went there, he could, like you said, he could be fine. He could be with his people holding Ezra captive, but maybe either he just doesn't have a way back, or Ahsoka just doesn't have a way to get to him. And that could be a crux of sort of what the show is about.
Interesting. Yeah. Yeah. So I think it's pretty inevitable that Thrawn is going to show up in live action along with an Ezra, and probably a Sabine as well. I look forward to that as well. Some kind of sad news on the gaming front. Lego Star Wars Skywalker Saga has been delayed again. So not coming out in the spring, which was anticipated. I think everybody thought it maybe May the 4th, but nope. No release date, but it is delayed. So looking forward to spending a whole weekend playing that at some point. I saw this on StarWars.com. So this whole week, actually, they've been celebrating what is coming out in the comic series, a big crossover called War of the Bounty Hunters. I don't know if you saw any of that. So, but it's a big crossover with the Star Wars comic and Boba Fett, because the time of the Star Wars comic right now is during the time between Empire and Jedi. So obviously, Han has been frozen in carbonite, and Boba Fett's trying to deliver him to Jabba, but of course he runs into a lot of bounties and people still going after him. So it's a big crossover event. They're doing a bunch of, if you haven't seen it yet, obviously it's towards the end of the week now, if you're listening to this, but StarWars.com has got all kinds of stuff where they were revealing covers all week and having interviews with the artists and writers and stuff like that. So big event. I guess that I kind of missed it a little bit this week because I'm behind on the comics. I kind of read as I go throughout the months, but this is the first time I can remember them actually doing an event around the comics. I don't really remember them doing it because there's been big crossovers that they've had. Vader Down was a big crossover they did a few years ago. But yeah, just wanted to mention that out there. I know you guys are probably like me. You guys are behind on the comics anyway, right?
Yeah, unfortunately. Yeah. The books and comics, but yeah,
it's funny. This pandemic, I felt like at first I get caught up on all kinds of stuff, but it's almost, I don't know. I feel like it's almost more. My life is even more chaotic at home all the time than living on the road and driving back and forth from work. And that's where I'm getting my audiobooks done.
Right.
But I have tried to catch up on the comics a little bit. I started reading the High Republic series because I wanted to kind of get something from that because I'm behind on the book. Again, because I'm not driving as much, but this War of the Bounty Hunters, I'm actually very interested in this because it's a good time period. There's that mystery of what happens in that year between 3 and 4. I'm sorry, 5 and 6, episodes 5 and 6. Yeah, and the fact that just because he captured Han doesn't mean it's going to be a cakewalk getting it back to Jabba. So I don't know. Pretty interesting storyline.
I'll probably jump into it, leading into Book of Boba. I feel like they do such a good job of trying to tee up some of these characters to pique your interest more or learn more. And maybe, who knows, one of these bounty hunters that we've known, might end up making an appearance in that show. So it'd be cool to see how they interact.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Very true. I wouldn't be surprised if a Fennec Shan probably showed up maybe in this also, right? Because she's around at some point still. Okay, I don't know if you guys saw this because I know you guys are Disney Plus guys. Did you see the Star Wars Vintage Collection that they put on?
Yes,
Disney Plus.
And I thought I was actually late to the game. I didn't know if it had been out for a while, and I just missed it. But that was pretty cool. Because I was mainly excited because first I saw the 2D micro series, and that was that. Yeah, I'm very excited about that.
Did you see it, Cody?
Yeah, I did. The Clone Wars series is also something that was really fun. I just feel like that style, obviously it was before we got, the Clone Wars that we know now. And I like both of them. I don't think it's like an either or situation. But, that kind, it was the guy who did Samurai Jack.
Yeah.
not mistaken.
Yeah.
On Cartoon Network, and obviously Clone Wars was on Cartoon Network as well. So yeah, it's kind of cool. It's like a nostalgic thing for me, to be able to go back and see it. So it's great that all that stuff's on Disney Plus now.
Yeah, so mainly it's the Clone Wars microseries. They did 2 volumes, what they called them, Volume 1, Volume 2. Volume 1 was really quick. There were like 2-3 minute episodes, and then Volume 2, they were a little longer and less of them. But they did truly, at the time, it did fill in that gap between 3 and 4. And I feel like it went even a little deeper with, explaining, it showed how Anakin became a knight, they cut his Padawan weave off, or his hair. It showed where he got the scar on his face. It was Grievous. There was a great introduction of Grievous on there. Anyway, it was really good. I did enjoy it. Unfortunately, it's not canon anymore because it got replaced with the 3D Clone Wars. But a lot of the Ewok stuff that came out in the 80s is on there. Part of it, the Ewoks TV show, cartoon show, and then you have the 2 movies that came out, Battle of Endor and Caravan of Courage. Man, I remember watching this back then. I'm thinking, this would be awesome. I remember thinking it'd be awesome. We're going to get like all these spin-off Star Wars movies. But all we got was 2 Ewok movies. I was like, highly disappointed.
Where's the pork movie?
Yeah.
They missed the show. There used to be a Droids cartoon too that I remember vaguely watching, but
that is right.
I missed that one.
They must not have the rights yet to that, or some reason, or it's not converted yet. But and then did you see I actually watched it. They have the story of the faithful Wookiee, which is the first appearance actually of Boba Fett. It came out when the holiday special came out back in 78, I think it was. That was the first. That was a little short, little 6-7 minute. Did you guys watch that at all yet? Have you seen that on there?
I haven't seen it on Disney Plus, but is it the animated thing of Boba Fett with the tuning fork gun and the dinosaur that he rides?
Yes.
Yeah. I've seen it on YouTube in the past.
Yes. I had not, I don't remember watching it all the way through, but I watched it again all the way through the earlier last weekend. And it kind of, because again, if you don't know who Boba Fett is at the time when you're watching it, he comes across as this really nice guy. He's helping Han and helping Chewie, and it's really funny because the animation it is what it is. But my daughter Sam, who's 11, was watching it with me, and I agree with her. Like, Han's face is so messed up, and she's like, "What is going on with Han Solo's face?" Like, I don't know. It looks so weird. It looked like he was punched in the face so many times, and it just like. He's like wrinkled all over the place. But yeah, Boba Fett looked like he was, this nice guy helping them out. But then of course he turns out to betray him. But that was the first Boba Fett. That was pretty cool. So I don't know what else besides that Droids cartoon. I'm not sure what else vintage they could actually put there.
They can put Detours out there.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah.
I mean, that to me, that was like the second thing I thought. I was like, oh, well, they just opened the door, I feel like, of putting non-canon stuff on Disney Plus.
That's true.
Which they technically already had, I guess, like Freemakers, right?
Lego series stuff, yeah.
But I mean, Detours is something else.
Detours, man, I don't know if they'll ever. I don't know. That might be one of the things where they never released that because they had tons of episodes done, like 2 or 3 seasons worth. I feel like
it's like the enigma of that show is growing so much. I feel like where it is like, I don't want to say like holiday special, but because it's good, but it's like to the level of just a mysterious old thing that no one's seen because it's been a while and they never released it, so it's like very mysterious.
The Star Wars Snyder Cut.
Yeah. Wait, well, you mean the 90s special editions?
Yeah,
The
well, I'm
Lucas cut.
saying like detours, like the Snyder
Yeah,
cut.
yeah.
It exists. Nobody's seen it. Everybody wants it. Just
Yeah.
Release the detours.
Yeah, release the
Yeah.
detour cut.
I don't. Yeah, they made such a big deal of it. Like those were the headline. I feel like the headline panels what Celebration for like a couple of years. Because they introduced it at Celebration 4. And then when we went in Celebration 5, Casey, we went down there. There was a big panel. Well, Lucas talked about it with his interview with Jon Stewart. I mean, Seth Green, those guys were in the front row. He was pointing him. I mean, it was like he was ready the detours to come out. It was like this new comedic take, but and also canon take on the series, which was crazy.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I don't know if we'll get it or not. Probably do you actually think it's like it's been so long? Do you actually think fans know know what it is?
I feel like this past year an episode leaked on Reddit.
You could probably find some clips somewhere. Yeah.
People were pretty excited about it. It got taken down, I feel like, pretty quickly, like maybe within 24 hours or less. I don't know where it got leaked from.
Yeah.
But it was like a full-length episode. Because I remember watching part of it and being like, oh. Okay.
Oh, Disney so released that to test the waters.
Maybe.
Probably. I mean, yeah, I wouldn't put it past them. I feel like they've done it in the past and we haven't realized it. So.
Yeah, that's. I mean, what I saw of it looked fantastic. It looked fun. The whole premise was, at least the first part of the premise was the Death Star construction was there was actually a mall in there.
Well, that was the cover story.
The cover story.
Shopping mall.
Oh yeah, it's a shopping mall. That's right.
Because that one lady got on and was like, "This ain't no shopping mall. It's a Death Star." Something like that. It had like a caution tape wrapped around it or something like that.
Yeah. That is hilarious. Anyway, Star Wars detours. I don't even know if half the people listening know what we're talking about, but we will we'll move on from that and get into our main topic here. Just some reminders on some releases coming up. The Dr. Aphra audio story that came out last year is now in book form. That just came out this past week, so you can actually buy the novel now. It's in script form written out, but that is out, the Dr. Aphra one. Like I mentioned earlier, Greater Good, the second book in the Thrawn Ascendancy trailer comes at the Ascendancy trilogy comes out at the end of this month, April 27th. Rising Storm, which is a High Republic novel, comes out June 29th. Out of the Shadows, High Republic novel, July 27th. Queen's Hope, which we mentioned, that's November 2nd. And then Lesser Evil, that Thrawn Ascendancy third book, is November 16th. So those are your novels that are coming out here this year so far that we know about. All right. I want to talk about this rumor and article that I read a couple days ago about whether or not the possibility of Qui-Gon Jinn appearing in the Obi-Wan Kenobi series. And of course, there's always probably going to be speculation. Anytime we have an Obi-Wan something, there's always a speculation that Qui-Gon could possibly pop in. Now, we were talking prior to recording, Casey brought up that there's in the novel A Certain Point of View, Star Wars A New Hope, there is a scene in there, which is canon now, that Qui-Gon appears to Obi-Wan Kenobi. And if you read it, if you kind of take it for what it is saying, you could kind of interpret it as that is being the first time Qui-Gon has physically taken form and appeared in front of Obi-Wan Kenobi. But the new rumor now is that he may do this for the first time in the Obi-Wan series, because there is now a new book that just released this week called The Skywalker Family, written by Kristen Baver, who is one of the hosts on StarWars.com. And in that book, someone has mentioned that it says in there that 10 years it took 10 years after Revenge of the Sith that Qui-Gon has now been able to, or Obi-Wan has now been able to commune with Qui-Gon Jinn. Now, it doesn't necessarily say that Qui-Gon has manifested himself, so it could be just the conversation. We maybe hear his voice. So ultimately, let's talk first about the possibility of Qui-Gon showing up. Is that, how relevant is that, Cody, to the story, and is that something that you want to obviously see in this?
That's an obvious yes for me. Thumbs up. I approve. No, I mean, I would love it. I'd love it if Liam Neeson's in the show physically. I think that'd be great. I think there's totally different ways around which point he actually manifests physically or not. It could easily be like a vision or something if it's not him actually communing real time with the Force Ghost. But at minimum, his voice would be great. And I think it's impactful to the story because, you know, you've got Obi-Wan, you know, continuing this training that Yoda gave him, right, to connect with Qui-Gon. I think that's what we got at the very end of Revenge of the Sith. But the interesting thing about it is, you know, where I think it can really make this show start to like challenge Obi-Wan is Qui-Gon. His whole mission he tasked Obi-Wan with, after, you know, right before he died, was, you know, to train Anakin. And, you know, whether or not this is the first time they're communing, I feel like, you know, I don't know what Force Ghosts know, how omnipotent they are, but, you know, Qui-Gon could kind of be challenging Obi-Wan yet again to be like, you know, this idea of, even though Anakin turned, you know, that Anakin is still out there, you know, that Vader's alive. And maybe that's how this Obi-Wan and Vader sort of connect again. You know, maybe Obi-Wan does one, you know, sort of last try to get his friend and his apprentice back. You know, maybe it's not Vader hunting him down. You know, there's probably people that are hunting Obi-Wan down, but maybe it's Obi-Wan going back to Anakin and one last try. I've just got to give this one last go.
Interesting.
And maybe Qui-Gon's the one that kind of like puts him on that path, potentially.
That is interesting. Huh. What about you, Case?
Yes, definitely. I want Qui-Gon to be in it. And he could be like a half a body floating in the clouds or something like that. Who knows? That'd be the full head to toe Qui-Gon. But he, you know, when you were saying that, Cody, I was thinking, would it be possible if instead Qui-Gon is sending Obi-Wan to save Anakin? Maybe he's sending him to kill Vader, which doesn't sound like a Qui-Gon at all. So I don't think that would happen, but that's still a cool idea to think that something that Qui-Gon is communicating with Obi-Wan about, which would give him some kind of mission, because the timing obviously is so coincidental. You know, this book mentions 10 years and the show takes place 10 years. So it definitely feels like Qui-Gon appearing is somewhat of like an inciting incident, you know, in some capacity, that, you know, to put Obi-Wan on a mission. So, you know, it could also just be like simply like a Force related mission. Like he needs to go further his training by getting off of Tatooine and you know, and doing the journey that Qui-Gon took, that Qui-Gon also told Yoda to take in order to kind of fulfill this training. So, you know, that would be kind of cool too, to see something similar to what we saw Yoda do in his arc on Clone Wars. But to your question, or to your point about being omnipotent and all that stuff, I definitely think Qui-Gon, that would be really cool, if he was totally aware. Because I think in the short story, he was talking to Obi-Wan about like things that were happening in the galaxy, of like Luke and Leia and kind of where Vader and where they all are in that current timeline. So I definitely think that's possible. Qui-Gon could be like telling Obi-Wan, because we asked this question before on the show, like, when does Obi-Wan know Vader's alive and it's Anakin? Well, maybe it's Qui-Gon who tells him that, and you know, whether or not then it becomes a mission to save him or not, that would be pretty cool. But you know, this could be a very good, like, let's bring everybody up to speed through the mouth of Qui-Gon kind of part of the show. So that I think it definitely serves a part. Qui-Gon being in the show could serve several purposes. You know, I think it's very easy thing to put into the show because it makes complete sense.
Yes. Yeah, and see, that would make sense to possibly see, which would be awesome, to see Obi-Wan finish that training. Because if you think about it, So Yoda does that during the Clone Wars, right? So by the time we see him in Episode 3, like you said, Cody, he hears Qui-Gon's voice, right? So he has that training and is then able to commune. So it would make sense that we would see Obi-Wan finish that training, and therefore then that opens the door to be able to talk to his former master. So, gosh, to see that live action would be incredible. I think
evil Obi-Wan.
Yes, and I think it's the priestesses or the prophetesses. Prophetesses. Yeah, prophetesses.
I thought it was the priestesses. At one point, it's really interesting, and I think on the databank there may even be discrepancy where at one point Qui-Gon actually learned from a shaman of the Wills.
Yeah.
Which was also in a unused draft of George's script for, I believe, Episode 3. So that didn't actually get canonized.
Right.
I think the Clone Wars arc either retconned it or canonized it to be a Force priestess.
Yes. I think they still mention the shaman in the databank somewhere. So, yeah, I mean, I think I can't remember if it's like pulling from something else besides Clone Wars, but I still think something of that George, story is still canon. And then then we have these prophet characters. It'd
be cool if they popped up. If you had just the tail end of that sort of finishing the training, like you mentioned there. I think that would be awesome.
Yeah, because I think obviously Qui-Gon never got that far, or must have, Darth Maul killed him before he was able to finish his training. So how far did he go, and how was he able to complete it? I mean, I think this kind of leads into really what I wanted to talk most about is the whole meaning of the Force Ghost to begin with, because there's, I think when you see Star Wars for the first time, A New Hope, right when Obi-Wan gets killed, he disappears. There's no body. Of course, Yoda then in Empire Strikes Back dies, disappears. So right away, you're told then that it's not just the fact that he got killed with a lightsaber. It's just when you die, when a Jedi dies, they disappear. Anakin, who wasn't a Jedi when Vader, when he dies in Return of the Jedi, he still is a physical form, and Luke has to burn him in order to. But then there's that weird explanation of how does the Force Ghost show up there at the end, right? Now, years ago, it was I think his name. Why am I blanking on his name? Is it Sebastian Shaw? I think that played Vader and Anakin back then. So I almost said Sebastian Stan.
I know, I was going to say. He's everybody. He's all the Skywalkers.
Yeah. So then, of course, fast forward to the prequels. I don't know if you guys thought of this when you first saw Episode 1, but when Qui-Gon gets killed, he doesn't disappear. And that really threw a wrench, I feel like, in a lot of Star Wars fans. I was like, wait a minute. Okay, so what's going on here? Why did he not disappear? Why? Case, what was your thought then? Like, what was your explanation? What was the explanation that you kind of told yourself that why he didn't disappear?
I don't know, honestly, if I thought too much about why he didn't back then. Because honestly, being so young when I first saw the original movies, I had some really dumb reasons why they even disappeared in the first place. That I don't want to like you said, like if it was a lightsaber or not, like how they were actually swiped. Like maybe that's I was trying to make some irrational reasons why it happened. So no, I mean honestly, I was more so shocked. I remember being more so shocked that. Because I was still pretty fresh with the idea of heroes dying, so that was just shocking to begin with. But no, I mean it was I don't think I really thought of anything. Honestly, it wasn't just that, but it was also like even Revenge of the Sith. there was so much speculation. I remember leading up to it, think about what's going to happen, and like Mace Windu being died. I guess my mindset was more so he wasn't powerful enough or whatever. Because I felt like when Mace Windu died, he would be like I was thinking like who in Revenge of the Sith is going to disappear, when they died. So I was more so gearing up towards something like that. But I mean, that's kind of the big question, because even Clone Wars has raised so many questions about this idea of the Force and the afterlife, and I think. Every story that keeps coming out that seems to be dealing with the Force, I keep hoping that they're going to answer all these questions. They never do. So once again, I'm hoping that this show will answer some of these long-standing questions about exactly just like why does this happen? And what does it mean? And all the balance, the idea of balance of the Force. Like hopefully, I once again hope they talk about that and unpack it a little bit in this show.
So Cody, what do you think about that? Because obviously too, when we get to episode 2, when there's a lot of Jedi dying, none of them are disappearing. When did you start thinking the concept of disappearing and not?
That's really interesting because I like Casey. I saw episode 1 at a young age, saw episode 2, and I think I just wasn't quite diving in that deeply of the who disappears and why. I think I always got caught up. I had a silly reason why I thought Obi-Wan did as well. I thought he just used the Force so hard that he disappeared. If you watch it, and this may just be how they shot it.
Oh yeah.
He disappears before the lightsaber hits. So I was like, he didn't actually die. He just used the Force so hard that he went away.
Yeah.
And I think that was just my young brain doing that. But it's weird because it started to hit me, I think, in rewatches of probably the special edition, the DVD versions of the original trilogy. With episode 6 specifically, Anakin showing up, and I think it was brought back to mind after seeing the prequels and seeing it be Hayden, that I thought, okay, because he's there, there's got to be something to redemption and sacrifice. That idea of maybe what is balance type thing is something that came up, because I thought, okay, Anakin did it, but he wasn't a good, like you say, he wasn't a Jedi. I mean, I guess he could have still been a Jedi at the end, redeemed, but he wasn't. He was a Sith, right up until he made the decision, but he sacrificed himself. So I always thought, back then, it had to be a sacrifice. Obi-Wan did the sacrifice, and Anakin did. Now, looking at it with everything that we know, there's discrepancies there. Yoda.
Right.
We learned how Yoda did, and this was well before that Clone Wars arc, but, Yoda did it through facing his dark side and training and things like that. So, I mean, I think there are breadcrumbs of answers of almost everybody we've seen, and we don't know all of Obi-Wan's story yet, had to face their dark side at some point to be able to do that.
Yeah.
And I think that's maybe a key part of it. But it's interesting. Yeah. I don't know if we'll ever know the full answer, because some of this is sort of symbolic of afterlife and things like that. And I think there maybe even is a point to not knowing all the answers, but it still makes you want to understand it.
Yeah. Because, you have these different, aspects of it with each trilogy, and then of course you get to the sequel trilogy, right? And you have Luke pass, and we don't know he's a Force ghost right away until we see him again in the very end in the Rise of Skywalker. But then you have so there's an assumption that he somehow went through the training or knew about the training also. But because now we're thinking, does he have to do the training before he was able to? Well, no, because he communed with Obi-Wan in the original trilogy without going through any training, right? Obi-Wan was able to show up, and maybe that's because Obi-Wan was a Force ghost at that time. I don't see again. There's all these questions that come up, right? Then of course you have Leia. Leia was able to do it. The thought is maybe Luke trained her or something, but she apparently cut her training pretty short after starting to go try to take care of Ben. And then there's the ultimate question about Ben. is he going to become a Force ghost, or would he become a Force ghost? So I don't know. So let's just try to hammer down what we think it is. Maybe, I don't know. I think it's safe to say that. Well, let me throw this one part out. Is we're told that you need to go through training, and we saw that with Yoda. I guess they could easily solve this problem by also saying that's not the only way to do it, right? So, what about that case? Do you want one way to be able to solve this thing, or maybe there's multiple reasons why this could happen?
No, I think the only way to do it is that there has to be more than one way, because obviously, I think we've already seen that there's more than one way to do this. I think this almost seems like every Jedi that's done it that you just listed off has a different way of going about it. I mean, I've always kind of, just really quick, I've always kind of chalked up the Anakin path of becoming a Force ghost to the fact that he's just the chosen one. It's just super easy once he kind of
right.
But every single one though does, like Cody said, has this idea of sacrifice. And it's every single one does have that kind of that. It's like a combination of sacrifice, but in a larger scale, in a larger sense of it, it's really all about selflessness. And I think it's really just because that's all Qui-Gon. His whole everything we've read about him in every story, it's always, especially Master and Apprentice, which was just a great look into his mind and his method and all that stuff, is this absolute monk-like, just live in the now, live in the moment, complete selflessness, acceptance of kind of the good and the bad and all that stuff like that. But so it's really just 100% giving into that notion, while also, yes, having this at least mindset of complete self-sacrifice if and when possibly that happens. So, and I feel like that's pretty much what all these Jedi that we've seen ended up. Luke literally, sacrificing himself. I mean, even Leia, Rise of Skywalker really does stretch this idea of afterlife and the fact that it's not there is this limbo state in a way where Leia passes, but she still hangs around until Ben passes, and then they both go away. So to me, and that excited me more, that because it kind of built upon that idea of the living force and kind of the afterlife. So again, every Jedi has, it's a little different, I feel like, every single time. So I think there definitely is more than one way to do this, but overall, it's, regardless of what your specific journey is, it's you just have to constantly be studying and learning and growing in this idea of selflessness and sacrifice.
Mm-hmm.
One of our first, maybe the first council sessions was, who's the greatest Jedi?
Yeah.
And I still think Qui-Gon possibly is that, because he, to me, embodies what a Jedi should be. And I think Ahsoka is pretty close to that as well. This just, keepers of the peace, literally what they always say they are, but they never are. Keepers of the peace, guardians of the peace, these people who just,
selfless,
but obviously that's where the fall of Jedi happens.
Compassionate. So
not going one way or the other, not going one way in terms of ignoring and not involving yourself. Kind of like what Dooku didn't like about the Jedi is that they didn't do enough to protect.
Yeah.
And then the other side, what happened in the Clone Wars, they did too much. They
yes.
So it's literally, so again, Qui-Gon's
finding the balance, right? Yeah. So Cody, to you, because I guess the simple question, I think, is what I think Casey was answering, and I was kind of posing, is basically, should there be rules? Should there be rules to how to become a Force ghost? Right.
I mean, I'll go on a limb and say, I mean, I don't think so. And I feel like that's kind of what Casey's alluding to, is there's got to be more than one way to explain all, the instances we went through, right? Like a lot of them all, we talked about it, have roots in sacrifice and selflessness. And that's the point of a Jedi, right? That should be what a Jedi should strive towards. We saw the Jedi kind of lose their way, and it might explain away why some of the Jedi in Attack of the Clones weren't able to achieve this. Because they weren't being as compassionate, loving, and selfless as they could have been. I think the Yoda arc, honestly, I think it kind of cheapens it a bit in a way. Mm-hmm. I think it almost makes it... Now, Yoda, I feel like Yoda is the anomaly, right? If you went through all the list, they've all sacrificed. And where it breaks, if you use sacrifice as like the answer, or selfless, true selflessness to the point of sacrifice, Yoda, I guess you could say that maybe he did over his years and the amount of wisdom and trials he went through, are, 8 times as much as a normal human, and probably more than that. But then with Qui-Gon, you get to the other side of it and you're like, okay, he was this perfect idea of a Jedi. He probably learned, he did learn this before any of the other Jedi that we know of. And why was his sacrifice not enough? It seems like it's right up there with Anakin. So a part of this is probably the real world idea of like they were building the ship as they went. I think that's the real answer to all of this, is they didn't know. There wasn't an answer when George sat down with it. But I think there are ways around it to explain that, you can learn through training, right? Like how Qui-Gon started, how Yoda got there, right? To face your inner darkness, to overcome that, to be selfless and to be able to sacrifice yourself. Or you can do it through a real example or trial, right? Like Anakin. Anakin did it real time. I don't think Anakin trained. I think there's a couple of instances where you could say it doesn't make sense that he did. And I think there's 2 levels of this training. Like you mentioned it, Dave. Apparently Yoda and Obi-Wan are training how to connect and communicate. But then there's also this idea of Yoda learning through those Force priestesses how to become, how to bridge the cosmic force and the living force. So it's almost like, and there's instances where there's different avenues for each. Luke didn't train to communicate, yet Obi-Wan was able to. So some of this must have to do with that bridge between the cosmic and the living force.
Yeah. And I think I love that point you said, because I think that arc in the Clone Wars, that Yoda arc, it does, because if all we had were the movies, I think there's a simpler explanation of, you could even go as far as, like you said, some do, some don't, because of power, how powerful they are, or but the Yoda arc, so we got to think about this, because the Clone Wars, that series 1 through 6, those 6 seasons, they were straight from George Lucas. So that was George's way of saying, this is how you become a Force ghost. You have to do this, right? So I think he was trying to lay the groundwork there. But as we get into the sequel trilogy, I think there's another kink in it that changes kind of what that could possibly be, and go as far as, think about this: when Rey is laying there dying, right? She all of a sudden hears the voices of these people, right? Are they actually, Qui-Gon? Obviously Qui-Gon, but you have Ahsoka, Mace. I mean, I think even Aya Secura is even in there. I think Barriss is it Barriss or Luminara? I think Luminara is on it. So you have these other Jedi that she hears, Kanan. So it's like, okay, so how do you explain that also, right? I mean, that's another big kink in the theory. So I don't know. I don't know if it's. I mean, I would. Part of me feels like that any Padawan or any youngling that is training to be a Jedi, I was somewhat always under the impression that was just part of the normal training of being a Jedi. Now, just like any power or ability, I feel like not all Jedi master all. Some are stronger with certain aspects of it than others. Of course, you have Mace. Apparently, he mastered every Jedi form, right? Fighting form, whereas some can't. They just don't have that ability to. So, maybe this is something that. But again, I don't think that happened this way. I don't think there is a training, because I'm not sure that they knew how to do this. It'll be interesting, because it'd be really interesting if all of a sudden, again, I don't know, and maybe it has. I don't think it has, because I think it would have been brought up. But we're in this other era now, right? 200 years before Episode 1, the High Republic era. Is there going to be a Force Ghost ever that pops up in that? Because you technically can't. I don't think, right? I maybe that's something that has happened before and it just kind of dies out. I don't know. I guess I don't know if you can answer this, Case, and I'll go to you first. But I mean, I don't know what would be. I don't know, this is kind of a hard question, but it's like, what do you want? Is there an answer you want to have? Like, do you want an explanation and how this works, or do you want it to be open? Because I do feel like that, again, if we didn't have the Yoda arc, I think it would be one of them things that very similar to, I think, what midichlorians did. It kind of explained more than what I think people wanted. I think people wanted it to be that mystery, and maybe it was better to be a mystery. I don't know. What do you think about that?
What about midichlorians?
No.
Okay. Yeah.
That's another show.
Yeah. No, I don't want there to be like, here's your 10-step guide to becoming a Force Ghost. Like you're get a nice little pamphlet or anything like that. But I love the idea that anybody can achieve this, whether they mean to or not. And I think that's clearly what has happened. With some of these other Jedi, this idea of this Zen-like state that you unlock, you level up, and then you kind of unwillingly do it. Because I do think every Jedi, again, truly whatever Jedi should be learning and training is to align themselves with what this means, like being selfless and being, sacrificing, like that. Like I do feel like that's what the Jedi are taught to behave, to be like. But there's just they just get wrapped up about what's happening in the galaxy too often. So I think each Jedi has that potential to become one with the Force, in this way. But it's just I think it literally. I mean, it's hard to say. Like, I don't want there to be like you have to do this and this and this, like Yoda's arc. I don't think every Jedi has to go to this planet and fight their demons in this way. So It's like you do it different ways, because if I think what little we know of how Qui-Gon learned, like he learned over the course of his whole journey, his whole career, and studying all these scripts and meeting these people, meeting probably a shaman, as what canon somewhat alludes to. So I don't think that's the one way, though. So I think if a Jedi just starts to living truly selflessly, and then I think they will fall into that. I think if they are true to that belief through and through, especially at death, like it's like they like Vader, he turned around right at the end there and redeemed himself, right? Ben as well, like redeemed themselves right at the end. So they, became one with the Force. So again, I think it has to be, I don't want to say loose, because there's a strict way of doing it, and that's selflessness, like 100% through and through selflessness. And, but how to perform that, I think, and could be somewhat wide, I suppose.
Yeah.
It's hard to answer.
Very hard to answer. Cody, what do you got?
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things that probably doesn't have an answer. But if I tried to put like what I would want it to be, Casey, you kind of mentioned that one with the Force is sort of what is attributed to it. I always think of the Star Wars Destiny card that you can play, which is one with the Force, and it gives you like extra life or whatever. Fun little tidbit there. But cheer it, like his mantra, right? That one with the Force is with me. That selfless, that monk-like state, I think that is what George is probably going for, right? There's connections to, some samurai culture. There's connections to just like modern like spirituality and stuff. So I think that what I would rather it be is a little bit more consistent than it's been, to be honest. Like just choosing like from here going forward. Like, of course, we've got the stories that we have. But maybe if there's ways that Qui-Gon can kind of unpack this, right? Like, I think we're looking at this list of, okay, this person, Anakin sacrificed, he found true selflessness in death, like Casey mentioned. And you look at Qui-Gon, well, Qui-Gon did sort of sacrifice, but it wasn't really a sacrifice. I mean, he was just in a fight with Maul and Obi-Wan. He wasn't like putting himself in the way of harm to save somebody else. He just happened to be on the other end of a lightsaber. So I guess if you really broke it down, like he didn't truly sacrifice the way that maybe Obi-Wan did. When Obi-Wan said, okay, this is my moment to let Luke get away, so I'm going to do this. And that was how he was able to become one with the Force. So a little bit of explanation, I think, for those kind of details, if that is the case, might be helpful of like why somebody like Qui-Gon didn't and why somebody like Vader did. I think that would be a little bit helpful.
Yeah.
But I do like this idea of anybody can achieve this. The reason that the Jedi didn't for years and years is because they probably lacked this sort of love and compassion. Anakin was almost on to the right point when he was talking with Padme. He just was looking at it from a selfish point of view, right? Saying the Jedi are encouraged to love. Right. That's somewhat true, Anakin, but not in that way.
Not in that way, yeah.
It is more of a selfless love. So I feel like it is rooted in the selfless nature. And, I'd like to think that Ben, he did become one with the Force. Whether or not he'll appear in the future is yet to be seen. But, I would hope there's some consistency there that his sacrifice of healing Rey, I mean, I guess this also dives into the whole midichlorian question of, he put all of his life, living force into Rey. So, if your living force doesn't go to the cosmic force,
correct.
Is there even anything that can appear? Maybe that is an explanation of that. But I would like a few of those explanations, but not a complete, like, this is how you do it, and it has to be the same for everybody.
Right.
I think it needs to be a bit nebulous to work.
Yeah, because because there's different aspects in the sequel trilogy. Because if I remember correctly, Luke, like, he just disappeared. Like, I don't think he didn't like die and then disappear. I feel like, right? Wasn't he like just looking out into this and then he just faded away? Like, that's different. Leia, right? She dies, but she's there in physical form forever until Kylo dies, right? And then Ben kind of comes back. But then you have, like you said, Ben. Well, let's rewind just right before that, right? Rey dies, right? But she doesn't disappear, right? So then Ben gives her the life force, and then he disappears. So there is a lot of different scenarios, and I think you're right. I think some kind of explanation probably is there's probably something out there that can explain all of it pretty easily, maybe, or like there's different aspects of it. But what about this thought? I was thinking of, is this at all related, or could this at all be related to how Palpatine survived? Somehow his life force traveled across the galaxy to his clone. Could it possibly be explained that he used this power, used this training to move through the cosmic force back into the living force?
Well, I would argue that he never went to the cosmic force. I mean, it was still in this world.
So his living force basically just
it's maybe you don't even think of it in that terms of living force may not even be accurate. I don't know, because it definitely feels different to me. Like just witchcraft almost. It's just like it's just complete magic and nothing too spiritual, because that's the whole reason why he's doing it, right? Because he can't come to grips with the fact that there is a possibility of an afterlife, or nor does he want to. Like, he wants to stay here in this world. So they can't let go of that. So that's why he definitely clings to life. So I definitely think I think it's different. I mean, I guess you can argue that it's related in some way because it's all the Force. It's just a different side of the Force, but I feel like it's different side, maybe the same coin, maybe.
Cody, anything?
I feel like that's an interesting question for sure, and I kind of like what Casey said about him maybe more so clinging and staying in the living force than like transitioning to the cosmic force, because I think that does, to me, it helps maybe explain some of that, to where I know it's not really spelled out completely, and I don't know if they will, but his life force or whatever left the Death Star and I guess traveled to one of these clone type things or whatever. I don't know how that worked, but to me that doesn't say that he necessarily his force went from living to cosmic.
Yeah.
But maybe he did learn to bend and utilize, like we saw in Rebels, the world between worlds to sort of try to bridge or escape what would happen to his midichlorian's life force in the living force. So I think there is a possibility that he bent it, but didn't utilize it in the same way. Because I do like this clear separation of selfless love is the only thing that can really get you to that, one with the Force, and Palpatine would never be able to achieve that. And I like that. I like the dark side not being able to achieve that ability.
Yeah. Yeah, because it's interesting how the Sith, I guess, or how they portrayed it with the Sith, because he kept mentioning how his life force was going to transfer to Rey as well, right? Once Rey struck him down, all the Sith prior were going to live in her, and it's very similar to what, in the end, it's very similar to what Luke said, right? Luke said, all the Jedi live in you now. I don't think it was the same way that what Palpatine was literally saying, but, somehow that what Luke was trying to tell her was that she could connect with those past Jedi, and she was trying to, right? You saw in the very beginning, she was like, be with me, be with me, be with me. She couldn't hear them until that very end. Because I don't know if that could be explained differently, that it's not this notion of Force Ghost, or I don't know, or it could be the same aspect, but it's just, it does open up a whole different conversation, because there's a lot more Jedi than we thought that could possibly be. And you want to talk about selfless, right? You go back to or sacrifice. I mean, one stands out is Kanan's death was a pure sacrifice, right? And which would make sense. Then maybe he could be able to commune with the living Force. So, I don't know. I think that's a good conversation. Maybe there's a council sessions in there somewhere. But I don't know. Any final thoughts on any of that case on Force Ghost?
I mean, just a couple of quick quick hits. But the Leia's situation to me is very interesting. I've always liked to think that she held off in this kind of limbo state so that she can help intercede in the Rey bid Solo moment at the end, to where she prevented Rey from making that bridge so that she can live on, and instead gave Kylo the hand to, or Ben the hand to kind of come over to the cosmic force. So I always liked, the last motherly act before she passed on. But
is that something she had to? Is that something she had to train to do, though? I mean, how do you explain?
I mean, possibly we didn't see all the training, and Luke has access to all these sacred Jedi texts and whatnot. So,
but not knows, then. I don't think then he didn't. I
don't know. I don't know.
I mean, that's
there's a lot of unknowns, and I think anything's possible. And certainly, when you're in, she's had enough training to at least make somewhat of a connection. I think once you're in the cosmic force, I do think that you are kind of subjected to all knowledge of the force, and so I think you're still able to learn and grow and work. So I think Leia, strike her down, she become more powerful than she can possibly imagine, or anybody can possibly imagine. So I think that happens, and that's what I do hope is the mystery. The mystery remains is that it is the Force. It is this idea of a spiritual world and faith where we won't know the answer. So that phrase of more powerful than you can possibly imagine can mean anything. It can mean anything.
Right.
So and I like that aspect of it. So I hope that stays. And then another quick hit, because that is a good point to say that you hear all these Jedi talk at the end, and I can't think of how Luminara was killed. I don't know. I don't remember if we saw it, right? I can't think of her story, her death, but I don't know if she had a sacrificial moment, and Elias Sakura didn't really either. So it isn't cut and dry in the sense of like how you die. So it's more, hopefully, it's more the state of mind and your soul, how that is. But anyways, Mace Windu also didn't sacrifice himself. So I'm really hoping that either he survived and there's a story to be told of how he does sacrifice himself, or he's just still alive and he communicates the same way that Ahsoka allegedly is communicating, through just through the Force. She's alive somewhere, still talking, and she can she's so connected that she knows what's happening.
Yep. Cody, final thoughts?
Man, I mean, I got a lot of thoughts about it. I don't know if they'll all be completely answers or very coherent, but I think, you're kind of, we got onto something with this, I think, a little bit. It almost talked me out of, I always thought Qui-Gon's death was sacrificial. And I don't know if this whole thing is going to have to be so nuanced on, like Casey said, how somebody dies or if it's a sacrifice, because Qui-Gon technically didn't, Mace Windu technically didn't. It helps explain away some of those things. Then you get to the Yoda point of it all, and it's like, well, then it kind of breaks it again. So it's like every time I think that I get to it, I feel like I'm like, well, there's one or two that don't completely wrap it up, which I feel like helps make it a little bit more of like, no, there won't be an exact science. It won't be the exact same for everybody. You mentioned a great point about Kanan. We don't know, I guess, the future of that because we haven't seen a lot with Ezra post, those last couple episodes.
Yep.
But I think it's interesting, the line of Casey mentioned when Obi-Wan says, become more powerful than you can possibly imagine. I almost wonder if it has a little bit more to do with when you get to that level of like, enlightenment, so to speak, in the
That's
Force.
The perfect word that I was trying to think of. Enlightenment.
Yeah, like enlightenment. It's almost like, there's this living Force and there's this cosmic Force. That's canon, that's been talked about. It's almost like maybe these Jedi are able to tap into the cosmic Force while they're yet like still alive, like still in the living Force. And that it's a weird sort of like more like, it's a weird description of it, but I feel like it kind of makes sense because, why were we able to see Luke do this Force projection? And that may have been a learned thing because he had plenty of time to read all the Jedi texts. Yet it also may have been a act of love and compassion. He did it because he loves Ben and because he wanted to save Rey and Leia and everybody that he cares for. And then you have Rey and Ben doing it subconsciously not training. So there's all these instances where it doesn't necessarily have to be they learned it at the temple in a book to be able to access it, but it may have a lot more to do with just your inner, like the mindfulness of a Jedi. I feel like that's something that kind of comes up a little bit too. And I kind of like this idea of them being able to tap into the cosmic force while they're still living. Gives them and helps unlock that power that's more possible than you can imagine. It allows them to leave the living force physically before they die, with instances like Obi-Wan and maybe even Yoda and Ben where they disappeared. I don't know.
That's a lot. That's a lot there. I think a lot there, and I think we all. I think we ultimately have landed on some type of explanation, but maybe a broader. Some broader details on how that works, because again, we're going to be getting into, I think, different eras of the Jedi, possibly some stories beyond episode 9, with whatever Jedi Order happens there. And then of course you've got the High Republic, and then, you definitely got rumors still that the Old Republic, could possibly come about somehow, and whether or not those Force ghosts are going to pop up then too. So there's probably an ancient Jedi text somewhere that explains all of it. So they just haven't found it yet. So that might be it. And who knows? Ray may have had it and knows all about it. But hopefully, it's honestly one of the most intriguing things to me. I'm a big fan of the Jedi. I'm a big fan of Yoda and Obi-Wan, and just being. I remember seeing those movies and loving the aspect of seeing their essence disappear. When they die. That scene in Yoda with Return of the Jedi is like one of the most emotional things I've in Star Wars, and it's really neat. And I hope it is somewhat explained, but we'll see. So, all right. That will do it for this episode of Inside the Force. Just want to remind everybody, we've got a new series out there called Masters of the Order. I've actually been fortunate enough to get some guests on there, and a little tease next week. The 3rd episode will be dropping, and I had a great conversation with Catherine Tabor, who voices Padme on the Clone Wars. Did you guys know that she's actually been involved with Star Wars ever since the very first game, Knights of the Old Republic, in 2003?
She's Bastila? Is she Bastila?
No, she's Mission. Her name's Mission
Vile. Yeah.
Mission Vile.
Oh,
yeah.
The Twi'lek.
The Twi'lek.
Right.
Yeah.
And she says Twi'lek.
She's on the east part of Star Wars, then, I guess. Or east side of the galaxy.
East side of the galaxy, yeah.
Depends on your dialect.
So, interesting. One of the questions I asked her, was, roughly about her, what some fans may not know about her and her involvement in Star Wars in the process. And she answered it by saying, what's funny is that she feels like Star Wars, she's done so much Star Wars, is like that is her career, and these other voice over jobs and acting jobs are kind of the extra things, whereas most people have normal acting or voiceover careers and they happen to do some Star Wars stuff. Well, she's so highly involved in Star Wars with the games. I mean, she voiced in High Republic, like I said, or Old Republic, like I said, but she was in Force Unleashed. She was Leia in Force Unleashed. I need to play that game again because I just didn't grasp that. But she was in Force Unleashed, and then of course the Lego games, the Galaxy of Heroes, that's on mobile. Then of course she's done tons of different voices on Rebels, and she's just done a lot of Star Wars. But she does hope to be into the live action version of it at some point, hopefully. Anyway, that'll drop next week. Go check that out. and more guests will come. And then, of course, on our YouTube channel, we got Council Sessions and Beyond the Sagas going, which are deep dives into other parts of the Star Wars galaxy. All right. Thanks, guys, for hanging out with me tonight. Have a great weekend. For Cody Geiler.
See you around, kids.
Casey Cooley.
Goodbye, everybody.
At some point, we're going to pop on here, and Casey's not going to be with us, and we're going to explain where he's at.
You'll do like a be in the middle of a show, so you have like a brief please stand by graphic, and I'll be gone.
That's right. Casey's expecting twins of his own here very, very soon. So
yes,
looking forward to that. All right. Thanks, everybody, for watching, listening. Take care. Have a great rest of your week. May the Force be with you.